The TF2 economy has been in a stale state for some time now. However, in more recent weeks it could only be described as chaotic. The inflation of keys to over 50 refined, the crate depression resulting in tens of thousands of new unusuals being unboxed, and Valve's decision to make some of those unusuals tradable. All of these have had an effect on the economy, so what is the state of it right now? Is inflation causing the death of TF2 trading? Has Valve's solution to the crate depression hurt the economy? Let's take a closer look at all of the information. One of the most commonly asked questions on my stream is, how did you manage to trade your way up to the backpack you have now? And it's a reasonable question. I have a lot of unusuals, rare and expensive items, and people want to know how I got there, and if they can do the same thing. Unfortunately, the answer is simple. I began trading back when it was a lot easier to start out. When trading was added to the game back in 2010, the economy of TF2 was fairly basic. My method was to craft the weekly item drops into metal, use that metal to trade for keys, which were valued at around 2.33 refined at the time, and then use those keys to trade for earbuds, which started at around 10 keys each. Other people expedited this process by doing things like selling rarer weapons for a scrap, which essentially doubled their base income. There were also other denominations of currency like the Bill's hat and Max's head, which were worth half and 2 earbuds respectively. I got my first unusual using this method. I paid 1 earbud for a vivid plasma medic mirror, which I later sold for an earbud plus sweets, a team used for odd hats and other items to sweeten a deal, worth a couple of keys. This was a simpler economy, but it was during a simpler time. There were a lot less cosmetics in existence, for example, compared to now where we have many generations of unusual effects, weapons and taunts, as well as multiple graded items. But what else has changed? After the free-to-play update, there was an influx of new players, and more players meant more accounts getting weekly weapon drops. A lot of people took this opportunity to make alt accounts as well, to increase the amount of weapon drops they could get, and therefore the amount of metal they were harvesting. More metal flowing in the economy meant there was more people willing to pay higher prices for keys, which was where we began to see the steep climb of their valuation. Back in 2015, I made a video about the possibility of the TF2 market crashing, with the prices of keys dropping dramatically. A couple of months later, this changed with the prices going back up, a major TF2 trading hub, Backpack TF, saying they were no longer considering earbuds as the de facto currency in the valuation of unusuals. The responsibility of this went directly to keys, with the values of Bill's, earbuds and Max's heads being directly affected. Keys were now how we valued any and all items in TF2. So instead of there being a constantly changing dynamic between the various denominations of currency, there was a direct relationship between refined, keys, and unusuals. The prices of keys continued to rise. Did Valve do anything to try and combat this? Well, yes. They introduced collector's items, another item quality that could be made by adding 200 of an item into a respective chemistry set. This gave players an alternative option in the use of their weapons and cosmetics instead of simply transmuting them into metal to purchase keys. A good idea, yes. However, to obtain the chemistry sets you either had to trade for them or be very, very lucky. They were a random drop, akin to the old salvage crates in Rarity. On top of that, these chemistry sets stopped dropping years ago, so any sort of friction from them to slow down the inflation of keys was essentially worthless. Was inflation killing the TF2 trading scene? Essentially, yes. Old players could afford keys with the years of refined and cosmetics in their possession, while newer players could not grind their way to afford a key. Attempting to get your first unusual using my method from 8 years ago would take you forever. It's not worth anyone's time. The only option, if you wanted to get into trading or to collect some items, was to put money into the game. There was a huge divide between regular traders in the game and those attempting to find a way in. Then the crate depression happened. On July the 25th of this year, a glitch occurred that meant certain crates guaranteed an unusual upon opening. My previous video went into the details and the numbers, where over 25,000 keys disappeared from backpacks during this period, and that doesn't include keys in private backpacks or those bought from the Manco store and directly used. Stats show us that over 125,000 of the bugged crates were sold on the Steam community market, while all of this was going down. In reality, only Valve knows the true number of unusuals that were unboxed. A week after the initial bug, Valve announced their solution: to make the first unusual you acquired tradable and any extras untradable and able to be refunded. There were a lot of differing opinions to this answer, with many praising Valve for their choice, while others complaining about the effects it would have on the economy. So which is it? Will this decision dramatically affect the TF2 economy or not? First off, what was actually affected? All of the unusuals unboxed came from crates that yielded Gen 1 or Gen 3 effects. This means that a whole bunch of unusual effects weren't possible. These included Gen 2, such as orbiting fire, bubbling and smoking, all generations of Halloween effects, all robot effects such as antifreeze and roboactive, the end of the line effects including frostbite and molten mallard, invasion update effects such as nebula, all unusual taunts, and all unusual weapons and war paints. When listed like this, it seems that it was only a small portion of hats and effects that were actually affected by the bug. Any valuation to hats in these groups are largely unaffected, while taunts and weapon skins remain untouched by this event. A counterpoint, however, would be that Gen 1 and Gen 3 host some of the most popular effects and hats. Burning, scorching and sunbeams remain some of the most valuable effects, while the likes of the green and purple energies, Disco Beatdown and Cloud9 are also fan favourites. Included in the hats unboxed were the likes of the Team Captain and the Killer Exclusive, two of the most valuable in the game. But CJ, Valve made most of them untradeable. Each person only gets one tradable unusual from this. Yes, I'm fully aware of that. This is why big tier traders and collectors aren't really going to be affected by this. You see, as this bug was happening, hundreds of people flocked to my YouTube channel to gloat and laugh that my backpack was now, apparently, worthless. How kind of them. But today I will teach people the difference between rarity and value. You see, having an item that is rare does not necessarily mean it is more valuable. At current count, there are 18 Burning Team Captains in the game, one of the most expensive items around. Backpack.tf values it at over 6,000 keys. In comparison, did you know that there was only one memory leak old geezer in existence? A one of one hat, it must be worth a fortune! No, only around 20 keys or so. Rarity has very little to do with the valuation of most of the top tier unusuals. They are considered so-called god tier because of the hat, the effect, and the fact that it is highly sought after. A few more Burning Team Captains in the game will not suddenly make them cheap enough for everyone to buy. This goes for pretty much every high tier hat with a good effect. Backpacks like mine, for example, still have very expensive unusuals in them. A few more of each in existence will not really affect their valuation at all because of how sought after they are. This means that the crate depression didn't really affect high-level traders or collectors much at all. The people most affected by this will be those plying their game time in the lower tier trading scene. Gamers who buy and sell cheaper unusuals of lower wanted effects. Will all of the extra unusuals, but CJ, yes I know, most of them are untradeable. But even Valve revealed that the amount that are tradable was equivalent to around the amount unboxed over a month. A month's worth of unusual uncrates in the space of less than a day. There are already a ton of unusuals in existence, but this amount isn't really just a drop in the ocean. But that's not the real issue here. Lower tier unusual traders usually sell to people who want an unusual for one of two reasons. 1. They want a specific hat with a specific unusual effect. Or 2. They can't afford more expensive unusuals and they just want any shiny hat available. During this craze, many people picked up their dream hats, or at least as close as possible, very cheaply on the Steam market. With unusuals going for as cheap as $5, it was a perfect opportunity for people to get the hat they always wanted. That's one market share gone. Secondly, those people who always wanted an unusual but never quite got one, they picked up hats on the cheap for the same reason. I heard people saying they were saving up for an unusual, any unusual, but managed to buy 3 or 4 on that day. That's another slice of the market no longer interested in buying your unusuals. Low-tier unusual traders have really been screwed with this, and only time will tell if the economy balances out for them and sales pick up. I've had a lot of friends in this situation complaining that their sales have been hurt because no one wants their unusuals. They picked up all they wanted during the Crate Depression. Finally, what about your average Joe? Well, it depends really. It depends on whether they uncrated or bought unusuals during the Crate Depression. If they did, many people who previously didn't have shiny hats now have a whole bunch to wear and show off. Many people made bank by selling hats and crates in order to buy games, and someone even bought a Valve Index with their profits. If you didn't or couldn't take part, well, you're out of luck. With the majority of unusuals being made untradeable, they won't be cheaper for you in the long term. Valve did not award a Cheater's Lament type hat to anyone who didn't take part. A lot of people complained that this basically meant they're being punished for not taking part during an exploit. While I can understand being upset that those people who took advantage of the bug are being rewarded by being allowed to keep all of their hats, like I said in my previous video, Valve was never going to find a solution that fully placated everyone. So in summary, is the TF2 economy destroyed? No. However, inflation is still an issue and a huge hurdle for people wanting to start out in trading. Low-tier unusual trading will be affected by the decision Valve made. And while some people essentially won during this event, for those who did nothing, it was just any other day. What are all of your feelings to Valve's decision? Are you going to refund any excess hats that you've acquired? Did you finally get your dream hat? Did you not unbox anything and now wish that you had? Let me know in the comments, because I still feel the community is a bit divided by this decision from Valve. Thanks for watching everyone, take care, and I'll see you next time.